Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series in which we discuss and briefly analyze the important news of the day. Let's have a look at today's main headlines. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs submits reports on the 3 bills aimed at reforming criminal laws. The Centre has suggested states to implement the Model Prisons and Correctional Services Act of 2023. The 77th CITES Standing Committee meeting removes Red Sanders from review of significant trade. AAINA Dashboard for Cities portal launched. India signs a $400 million loan with Asian Development Bank for a sub-program 2 of the Sustainable Urban Development and Service Delivery Program. The government e-marketplace surpasses Rs 2 lakh crore in gross merchandise value. Starting with the first main news, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs has submitted reports on the 3 bills aimed at reforming the criminal laws. The 3 bills include the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 that will be replacing the Indian Penal Code of 1860. The second is the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita 2023 that will be replacing the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. And the third one is the Bharatiya Sakshya Bill 2023 to replace the Indian Evidence Act of 1872. These bills were subsequently referred for the further examination to the Parliamentary Standing Committee. These bills aim to address large pendency in courts, timely justice delivery, erasing colonial legacy, and increasing the conviction rates. Let's have a look at the key highlights of the report. The bills provide that Section 377 of the IPC to be deleted, which is related to the unnatural sex against the order of nature. However, the Standing Committee has recommended to partially retain Section 377 of the IPC in a gender-neutral form. When it comes to Section 497 of the IPC relating to adultery, it has been deleted in the bills as the Supreme Court read down the provision. However, the Standing Committee has recommended to retain the offence of adultery by making it gender neutral. Also, there are 6 types of punishments to which offenders are liable under the provisions of the Sanhita. These are death, imprisonment for life, imprisonment, forfeiture of property, fine, and community service. The Standing Committee herein has recommended empowering the judicial magistrates to impose community service as a punishment. With respect to EFIR, the use of handcuffs, and admissibility of digital records, the committee recommended that EFIR to be done through state-specified modes, restricting handcuffs for economic offences, and mandating proper handling of digital records, respectively.
In another news, the Centre has suggested states to implement the Model Prisons and Correctional Services Act of 2023. The Model Act aims to holistically address all relevant issues relating to prison administration. It replaces the Prisons Act of 1894 and assimilates relevant provisions of the Prisoners Act of 1900 and the Transfer of Prisoners Act of 1950. Before moving on, let's first discuss how prisons are governed in India. Prisons or persons detained therein is a state subject in the Constitution of India. However, given the significance of prisons in the criminal justice system, the Ministry of Home Affairs has been providing regular guidance and support to the states and UTs on the matter. Let's take a look at some important features of the Model Act. The Act provides for the establishment of high security prisons, which will be independent, self-sufficient prisons with strengthened security systems and facilities like independent court complexes for gangsters and hardened criminals. As per the Act, a Directorate of Prisons and Correctional Services may be created for implementing prison policies and coordinating various prisons and correctional services. The Act classifies prisoners into broad categories of civil criminal, convicted, under trial, detainees, habitual offenders, and recidivists. The Act also provides for segregated accommodation for various categories of prisoners and for attending to the special needs of women and transgender, among others. Also, a staff welfare wing can be established by the head of prisons and correctional services to aid the government with welfare measures for prison staff. The Act also promotes the use of technology and calls for computerization of the entire prison administration and integration of the database within the interoperable criminal justice system. Under the Act, electronic tracking devices can be used for prisoners who are granted leave. An example of use of such a device comes from the Jammu and Kashmir Police, which recently introduced a GPS tracker anklet for monitoring a terror accused out on bail. Importantly, the Act focuses on prisoners' health care, stating that all prisoners will have access to adequate, gender-responsive healthcare facilities.
Moving on, the 77th CITES Standing Committee meeting has removed red sanders from the review of significant trade. The CITES Review of Significant Trade, or RST, is a process where the Standing Committee closely examines a country's species export to ensure compliance with CITES. Herein, the non-compliance may lead to disciplinary action through trade suspensions. India has been under RST process for red sanders since 2004. The removal from RST will help farmers growing red sanders enter the supply chain of legitimate trade. In India, the exemption from RST has been attributed to the 2022 amendment to the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. The amendment incorporated provisions of CITES as mandated under the CITES National Legislation Program. As a result, the CITES Standing Committee has now moved India from Category 2 to Category 1. Under the National Legislation Program, based on the compliance level, parties could be placed in any of the three categories. Herein, Category 1 legislation is believed to generally meet the requirements for implementation of CITES. Category 2 legislation is believed generally not to meet all the requirements for the implementation of CITES. And the Category 3 legislation is believed generally not to meet the requirements for the implementation of CITES. Before we conclude this news, let's understand more about red sanders. It is endemic to tropical dry deciduous forest of the Eastern Ghats and is referred to as the pride of the Eastern Ghats. Its heartwood is heavily impregnated with red dye called xanthalene, for which it is valued. Its conservation status in the IUCN Red List is endangered, and it is listed in the Appendix 2 and Schedule 4 of the CITES and the Wildlife Protection Act respectively.
In the next news, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs launches the AAINA Dashboard for Cities portal. The pioneering portal will provide information on the status and progress of cities on 5 broad thematic areas: political and administrative structure, finance, planning, citizen-centric governance, and delivery of basic services. For the dashboard, urban local bodies or ULBs across the country can voluntarily submit their key data, including audited accounts and self-reported performance metrics, on a regular basis. The ministry, through Digital India Corporation, will provide hand-holding to ULBs and states in the data submission process. Digital India Corporation provides strategic support to ministries and departments for carrying forward the Digital India mission. So what does the portal aim to achieve? It will create healthy competition, as ULBs can now see how they are faring vis-a-vis other ULBs. It will also motivate ULBs to identify the possibilities available for improvement. Additionally, it will provide an opportunity for ULBs to learn and implement best practices from peers. Talking about the need for the portal, providing critical data on single platforms would be helpful for planning new schemes and making policy decisions. Before moving on, let's take a brief look at urban local bodies in India. They are constitutional bodies, and the 74th Constitution Amendment Act of 1992 recognizes ULBs as the third tier of government and categorizes them based on population size as Nagar Panchayats for urban areas, municipal councils for smaller urban areas, and municipal corporations for metropolitan areas. They have been given 18 specific functions enumerated in the 12th schedule of the Constitution, and they have a term of 5 years, and their re-election is scheduled within 6 months of completion of their term. Moving on to the next news, India has signed a $400 million loan with the Asian Development Bank for Sub-Program 2 of the Sustainable Urban Development and Service Delivery Program. The Asian Development Bank, headquartered in Manila, Philippines, was established in the year 1966. It envisions a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific while sustaining its effort to eradicate extreme poverty in the region. The bank helps its members and partners by providing loans, technical assistance, grants, and equity investments to promote social and economic development. It has 68 members, with 49 members being from within Asia and the Pacific. India is a member of the bank and also one of its 5 largest shareholders, apart from Japan, USA, China, and Australia. Coming back to the news, the Sustainable Urban Development and Service Delivery Program aims to support the government's urban reform agenda for improving the quality of urban life through creation of high-quality urban infrastructure, assured public services, and efficient governance systems. Sub-Program 2 supports the reforms initiated by the states and the urban local bodies in operationalizing the national flagship program of Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, or AMRUT 2.0. AMRUT 2.0 is targeted for universal access of water supply and sanitation and to ensure urban water security through measures like reducing water losses and recycling treated sewage for non-domestic use. Earlier, the Asian Development Bank had approved Sub-Program 1 in 2021 with a financing of $350 million, while Sub-Program 1 established national-level policies and guidelines to improve urban services. Sub-Program 2 supports investment planning and reform actions at the state and urban local body levels. So, what is the need for such a program? The program can help in keeping pace with India's urbanization. India's urban population is second largest in the world at 498 million in 2021 and is projected to increase to about 600 million by 2030. The program can also help in improving urban service delivery in India, as Indian cities score low on the Ease of Living Index. Additionally, it can help solve issues like insufficient urban investments and low financial capacity of urban local bodies.
In another news, the government e-marketplace has surpassed rupees 2 lakh crore in gross merchandise value. This value, in less than 8 months of the financial year 2023-24, has surpassed the total gross merchandise value inscribed at the end of the last fiscal year. Let's have a look at the government e-marketplace, or GEM, in more details. It is a public procurement portal for procurement of goods and services for all central government and state government ministries, departments, and public sector units. The purchases through the GEM by the government users have been authorized and made mandatory by the Ministry of Finance. The significance of the GEM portal can be underlined by the fact that it has made the public procurement process transparent, efficient, and inclusive. It has also saved the exchequer's money, as the GEM portal has enabled the government to save over rupees 45,000 crore since 2016. It also provides the opportunity for startups and women entrepreneurs. Before we conclude this news, let's have a look at the initiatives taken on the GEM portal. The Womonia initiative showcases products made by women entrepreneurs and women self-help groups, and it also spurs women's entrepreneurship. The Green Gold collection showcases a range of bamboo accessories for the potential use in the construction sector and exquisitely handcrafted bamboo handicrafts. Also, the Sustainable Public Procurement of Products and Services in association with the United Nations Environment Programme has also been undertaken.
Let's have a look at today's personality in news, which is Shaheed Veer Narayan Singh. He was born in a zamindar family at Sona Khan in Raipur district of Chhattisgarh. His father belonged to the Binjwar tribe. He spearheaded the 1857 War of Indian Independence in Chhattisgarh and is known as the first Chhattisgarhi freedom fighter. He was arrested in 1856 for looting a trader's grain stocks and distributing it amongst poor in a severe famine year. In 1857, he escaped prison, raised an army of 500 men, and fiercely resisted British before being hanged. Chhattisgarh's International Cricket Stadium is named after him. He exhibited ethical values like valor, compassion, and courage of conviction.
As we conclude today's main news, let's go through some quick updates. The Ministry of Home Affairs bans 9 Meitei extreme groups as unlawful associations under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Act is an act for the prevention of certain unlawful activities of individuals and associations and for dealing with terrorist activities. The Ministry of Education has notified the Indian Institute of Management Amendment Rules 2023. Earlier, in the monsoon session 2023, the Parliament passed the Indian Institute of Management Amendment Act 2023 to amend the Indian Institutes of Management Act 2017. India-OPEC energy dialogue has concluded with both parties underscoring importance of fostering enhanced cooperation. OPEC countries constitute 60% of India's total crude imports, and India is the world's third largest importer of crude oil. A portion of an under-construction Silkyara tunnel of the Char Dham all-weather highway project collapsed in Uttarkashi district of Uttarakhand. The first image from Euclid Space Telescope were recently released. Euclid is a European Space Agency mission designed to unlock the secrets of dark matter and dark energy. US has approved world's first vaccine for chikungunya named IX-Chick. It contains live, weakened version of the chikungunya virus. Chikungunya is a viral disease transmitted by the Aedes mosquitoes. Recently, the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research highlighted concerns with chemical compounds which produce a glitter effect in firecrackers. Among other things, they can cause bone growth problems and damage to the nervous systems. Australia will issue a national apology to all citizens affected by the thalidomide tragedy. Thalidomide is a sedative drug prescribed to pregnant women in order to relieve pregnancy nausea in the 1950s. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to the test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answer to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.